What is going on, you guys? Today I have another super quick episode for you. So we're going to be going over a YouTuber named Psychax, and the title here is Body Count and Sexual Jealousy, Moving Beyond the Number. Let's get into it.
I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is Psychax, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is body count and sexual jealousy. So this is going to be a spicy episode, and I'm going to say some things on this subject that I'm sure some men out there are not going to agree with. And that's okay. My primary thesis here is that when it comes to body count, the actual number is not as important as a lot of men out there believe. And I'm going to be discussing why I believe that to be true in today's talk. First of all, I'll preface this by saying, men, you are allowed to want whatever you want.
I also like the way he just said that, right? Because he didn't say it's not important. Maybe just not as important as you would like to believe it is. So, I mean, let's see what he has to say.
If you want a woman with a low body count, that is your right. If you want to marry a virgin, that is your right. It might be very difficult to find in today's sexual marketplace, but if that's what you want, I don't have a problem with your preference. I hope you find what you're looking for. That said,
Also good that he said that, right? I mean, there's no use in shaming each other for our, preferences for partners or sexual relationships or whatever, right? It's like what you want is what you want, and that's okay, right? We all have different tastes, like it's the same thing for like foods and stuff like that, right? It's like we like different kinds of music, things. So like why are we gonna bother like shaming people for that?
Not immediately obvious why men want women with a low body count. This is because the actual number is generally understood to be a proxy for other things that men do want, which tend to fall into two informal clusters. On the one hand, low body count is presumed to incite less sexual jealousy and disgust. On the other hand, low body count is presumed to facilitate pair bonding and emotional attachment. Now let's talk about each of these things in turn. So men can and do get jealous of a woman's past. That's why I generally advise men to tread into the territory of a woman's sexual past only with a great deal of discretion. There might not be anything that you learn by prying into her past that will make you feel better or will improve your capacity to make an informed decision.
Yeah.
This is because if you want to know, you're already emotionally invested, which means on some level,
That's a good point. Like if you want to know, you're already emotionally invested, so it's gonna hurt you to figure out that she has, had more partners, right, or a higher body count. So you're probably not gonna be happy with the answer that you get there. I guess unless the answer happens to be and is truthfully that she hasn't been with anybody, right? That might be like the nice answer, but like what are the chances that that's the truth? I don't know.
already made your decision. Men who are not emotionally invested do not care about a woman's past. It doesn't incite jealousy or disgust. In fact, if you're just looking to smash, then her experience with short-term relationships is to your benefit. It means that she's open to the possibility of a casual relationship in a way a virgin probably wouldn't be. On the other hand, men who care about a woman's sexual past are more interested in a long-term relationship, typically because they've already made the decision to emotionally invest, at which point any information about anything that she's done with anyone is subject to creating unnecessary pain. And this, of course, is why women generally lie when it comes to this topic. And here's my point. Men's emotional reaction to a woman's sexual past often has less to do with the sheer number of her previous sexual partners and more to do with what she has done or not done with you relative to what she has done or not done with anyone else. The emotional reaction is a response to an awareness of an unfavorable economic exchange. In order to explain,
I mean, I guess I agree and I disagree, right? Like, I get what he's saying. I'm interested in what he's about to say too. I mean, I will say, like, if you know that she has like a super high body count, like it's not, at that point, I think it's not so much about the jealousy as it is like the disgust. It's like they were kind of like not caring so much, like they just gave their body away to so many people. But that would be, truthfully, I think it's the same for guys, right? Like guys like to have an ego about it. Like, they watch, different kinds of podcasts where guys have an ego and they're like, no, it's different for men. And sure, maybe it's a little different, but I think it still affects men too. So like, I think there are certain guys who get around too much and it also affects them. I'm not sure the science behind it specifically, so I'm not going to claim to be the expert on this. I wonder what it looks like if it affects us the same, or maybe it affects women more. I'm not too sure, but I think the argument guys have for that usually is because like women are typically naturally more emotional, while guys are typically more on the logical side. Well, we both have emotion and logic. It's just women more emotional, men more logical, right? And it's just being like, I guess, harder for guys to get attached, like emotionally attached. But I think the argument for pair bonding is that you make it harder to get attached in general the more partners that you've had.
I'll use some simple and slightly exaggerated examples to demonstrate what I'm talking about. According to the data, women in the West have a lifetime average of 7 sexual partners. So let's say that you meet a girl with a relatively high body count, like 15. This woman has slept with 15 men before you. But let's also say that she made each of them wait 2 months before she slept with them, and only after each made an exclusive commitment to her, and they only ever had standard intercourse that she didn't enjoy. And let's also say that she was willing to break all of these rules and precedents with you. She's so attracted to you that she wants to sleep with you right away without an exclusive commitment, and no sexual activity is off the table. How are you going to feel? Now, if you're like most men, under the circumstances, you're not going to feel disgusted that this woman has had twice the average number of sexual partners. You're going to feel attractive and flattered and proud that she is apparently willing to break the rules for you that she applies to everyone else. Those other men aren't going to be as problematic, and you certainly are not going to perceive them to be threats in your relationship. Now, on the other hand, let's say you meet a girl.
And that's assuming that that's the truth about her making all the other men wait 2 months, right? And I get what he's saying, right? Like, assuming that's the truth, and assuming that either you had a conversation about it, which is like kind of, it's hard to get that out of a girl anyways, without starting like a weird conversation. It's like you either have the conversation, or maybe that's just in the background, like you don't know, right? Like, she made every other guy wait 2 months beforehand. I guess that might be like a more ideal situation. Like, I guess if she didn't make you wait specifically. I think the other argument to this, I'm not an expert on this, but I'm wondering if it would be to both sides' benefits to wait, right? Maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months. As I know a lot of people who have done the Playboy thing, right? Like, engaged in casual, intimate relationships really quickly, or a lot of short-term stuff. Like, I hear a lot of them saying, like, that they might benefit from waiting a longer time because they're interested in something longer term, right? So, like, actually having a really great relationship with the girl before that happening. And again, like, I'm not sure, like, I'm just like, this is something that I hear a lot of guys talking about, so it's just worth mentioning, I think.
And she's only been with one other man in her entire life. But that one man was a Division I athlete who went on to have a lucrative professional career. You probably know his name. She slept with him on the first date, went on to have all kinds of wild, hot sex with him, and didn't mind if he slept with other women. Maybe she did things with him you thought only women in porn were willing to do. However, when you started dating her, she made you wait 2 months before you had sex, demanded an exclusive agreement, and wouldn't do anything beyond standard intercourse. In this case, how are you going to feel? If you're like most men, under these circumstances, you're not going to feel relieved that this woman has had only one single sexual partner. You're going to feel like a total schmuck, which you will likely defend against by becoming angry or disgusted. Why? Because you transacted for a less attractive sexual opportunity for far more time, energy, and emotional investment than this other guy. This information is going to make you feel like you overpaid for a good that you could have gotten for much less. And that's going...
Right, well, it's like being the guy, like, why did she make me wait but not the other guy, right? So it's, I guess, the flip version of that. And also, again, I don't know the science behind this. I think when people talk about pair bonding too, they talk about like the chemicals that are released, from, like touching each other, intercourse, etc., right? so like in your brain. So I don't know if they're saying like it numbs you, right? Like the more partners that you've had, it also numbs you. Like you've gotten so many of those chemicals from other people that like it's harder to connect with a new person on like a chemical or biological level, right? Or neurological, right? I'm just curious, like, because it's definitely an interesting topic, because that would add like an extra layer to it if it's like chemical and biological as well, right? Like making it difficult to bond with someone because of that, like having as many partners. But again, it looks like there's other reasons that will affect it as well, like he's talking about.
Make you feel that she's not as attracted to you as she was or still is to her ex. This man will likely be a problem, and you will almost certainly perceive him to be a threat as long as you are in a relationship with this woman. Do you understand? The emotional significance of body count has less to do with the actual number and much, much more to do with how favorable you perceive your transacted relationship to measure up to her previous transacted relationships.
Especially if one of those is like the guy that she really wanted, sort of like the one that got away kind of thing, like she really wanted to work out with that guy. Maybe, especially if it was like funny, like she wanted to work out, it was like that D1 athlete guy, whatever, right? Like the quote unquote like Chad or whatever. So that's a good point. I think I see what he's saying here.
Men correctly perceive a woman's sexual enthusiasm for him to be a general litmus test for her interest and attraction, which is why, as I've said previously, it's important for women to be the nastiest, sluttiest versions of themselves with the men they want to secure relationships from. So that's the first thing.
I see the argument for both sides. Like they'll say like if they want the provider guy who's not the quote unquote like alpha, or the provider guy who's not like the one that she really wants, like she might make him wait, versus the guy that she really wants, she won't make him wait. I don't know. That's kind of an interesting thing that he said there. I'm not fully sure if I agree with.
The second thing is that low body count is presumed to be associated with the ability to pair bond and form an emotional commitment, both of which are vitally important for long-term relationships. And I would say that there is some truth to that. For instance, a woman who has slept with dozens of men by the time that she is 30 might reach that age without any experience whatsoever being in a stable, committed relationship. She's been practicing something else, and so she's gotten better at that something else. She hasn't been practicing this other kind of relationship, and so she hasn't gotten better at that.
That's a good point. I mean, what's just like pouring all your ability or your energy, your efforts into basically having the ability to have a bunch of short-term relationships versus long-term relationships. Like, where did she pour her energy? Short-term or long-term? So maybe long-term would be more difficult for that type of person.
Woman with a relatively high body count is also much less likely to be securely attached and much more likely to be anxiously ambivalently attached. These women often use sex as a means of securing interest and attention from a man, which works, at least temporarily, as a means to validate their self-worth and stabilize themselves emotionally. And a woman with an unstable self-concept and who has difficulty regulating her own emotions is extremely difficult to have a relationship with. For instance, it's very difficult.
Also, I would say it wouldn't just potentially be anxious attachment. It could also be avoidant.
To pair bond with a woman who is constantly afraid that you are going to leave her. What's more, such women might not like you as much as they like attention, which is easily replaced. So it's the psychology that's really the issue here. The high body count is potentially just a sign of those problematic underlying dynamics. However, there's another way to think about why a high body count might make pair bonding difficult that doesn't get a lot of airtime, which is why it might be important for me to mention it. We live in a world where much of the advice around maintaining a relationship has to do with effective communication and emotional vulnerability and love languages and so forth and so on. However, the fact of the matter is that one of the best ways to secure loyalty and long-term commitment from a woman is to fuck her really good. That is just the truth. And how good you fuck her is always going to be at least somewhat relative to all of her previous sexual experiences. And just so you don't think I'm being inappropriately crass here, let's consider just two pieces of evidence taken from David Buss's The Evolution of Desire. Quote, whereas only 3% of women who were often or always orgasmic with their husbands expressed an interest in extramarital sex, 10% of women on the low end of the orgasm scale reported interest in having sexual affairs with other men. That's fact one. Here's fact two. Quote, 94% of the married women who experienced frequent orgasms with their husbands reported that they still love their husbands as much now as during their newlywed year. 61% of the less orgasmic women reported feeling comparable emotions of spousal love. What does this mean? Apparently, if a woman is not sexually satisfied with you, she is 3 times more likely to cheat on you. And if a woman is sexually satisfied with you, she is 50% more satisfied with the relationship in general. Gentlemen, those are huge fucking numbers. And the relationship satisfaction stat is particularly relevant here because we know that men and women pursue extra partner liaisons for different reasons. Namely, there is no difference, repeat, no difference in relationship satisfaction between men who cheat and men who don't cheat. Just the way it is. However, women who are not satisfied with their relationships are far, far more likely to cheat than women who are. Like, why do you think women go back to that toxic ex of theirs? Because he's good at sharing his feelings? Now, here's the bitter truth. If a woman's sexual satisfaction is related to her loyalty and her commitment, and her sexual satisfaction is at least partly related to her previous sexual history, the more partners she's had, the less likely you're going to be her best. All other things being equal. Like if she's just had 19 other lovers, then the likelihood that you're going to be the best she's ever had is at 5%. Not impossible, but the odds are definitely stacked again.
Yeah, even those aren't really good odds. Like you being one out of 19 other guys, right? Like the likelihood of you being the best there. That's interesting.
It's you. So that's the underappreciated reason why high body count is associated with the long-term success of a relationship. The more...
And that's just sexually too, right? So I mean, sexual attraction, of course, you know, like he was talking about, like orgasmic, etc. So like their happiness in that realm. I mean, obviously, like it's a key factor in maintaining a relationship, which, you know, is part of why people say like, you know, the dead bedroom sort of leads to like part of the downfall of like a marriage or relationship or whatever. So I get what he's saying.
She's had, the harder it will be for you to be the best she's ever had. And this will redound to her loyalty and her emotional investment over time. Gentlemen, fucking your women well is one of the single best things you can do to ensure her commitment, her investments, and her overall satisfaction. It's also fairly fun to do. Something to consider. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've gotten this far, you might as well like this episode and subscribe.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, I think at the same time too, like, well, that would probably be an indicator of potential lack of loyalty if she's had like the higher that number goes for body count, like probably the less likely that she's loyal, right? Or more likely that she is to cheat, right? Which I guess just continues to increase that number of like who was the best partner, blah blah blah, right? But definitely, it's an interesting topic for sure. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on it. Maybe drop a comment below. Also, like and subscribe to the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. You got this, bro.